and kind of enthusiasm they have for the game, the hunger they have is definitely not there. And they are struggling. Those two games I referred to, the Cork and Kerry, there were late scores and goals that kind of got them over the line. They played really poorly again today. Game over at half time essentially. Put up a bit of a trot for 10 minutes when Kevin Hughes came on, but no, they played poorly. No getting away from it.
You've been looking at Dublin, at their tactics and the way they use space.
Yeah, I think they're really putting a lot into the way they're creating space, especially in the left corner, the right corner, emptying out the corners very well. And they're using the pace of the Brogans and Hubbard to a lesser degree. And this is all very simple stuff, if the inlet pass is accurate.
Yeah.
And for much of the game, there were superb foot passing. Timing of the run is excellent. Nice little pass off here from Alan Hubbard, and it's just very simple finish. Well, that's not that simple, but very excellent finish. And Bernard Brogan in particular was on fire all day. But the passes into him were really always to advantage, and they're utilising that space very well. They're probably lining up somewhere around the penalty spot and making their late runs, and then finishing with real accuracy. And Alan and Bernard Brogan obviously bring that to the table. I think Bernard ended up at 7 or 8 scores.
Yeah.
But you have to admire the inlet pass, and the point I was making, Michael, and we see it here twice. Kevin McMenamin, another lovely dink over the top. There's the run, the late run. That's very hard to mark, and this could have been just as easily a goal. So they did that all day. They got a lot of scores out of it, and they're attacking very well. It's the midfield defence that we'll have to wait till the summer to see.
OK, Kevin, thanks for that. But now back to Annual Congress, and here's an interesting one that will be debated next weekend. A second chance for provincial winners in the Football and Hurling Championships. Now, one disadvantage, of course, of winning the provincial crown at the moment is you're out if you lose a match from then on. Well, here are some of the views that we gathered on this one.
Well, what's an interesting motion is the one from Tyrone and Dublin, that the provincial champions basically get a extra round, that the 4 provincial champions will play among themselves, and that the 2 losers from that will still be in the championship, while the 2 winners will progress to the All-Ireland semi-final.
It's become a bone of contention amongst some counties who win the provincial championships that they are the only teams that aren't allowed a second chance.
Well, I think it's only fair that the winners of the provincial championship should get a second chance somewhere. How they come up with an equitable system is up to debate, obviously, but I think that's fair enough that they get a second chance.
I think it possibly might devalue the championship. The idea of beating someone maybe in a quarter-final or a semi-final and meeting him again in the final is, it's probably difficult to take.
A lot of teams learn a lot from a defeat, so I think it's a very good idea, and I'd really hope that it gets supported, because I think it gives, it'll probably put a bit more mass on winning your provincial championship, because you're getting a second chance at a quarter-final, so I think that's a good thing.
I suppose there has been a little bit of an issue whereby teams that win provincials like ourselves have gone on to be knocked out in the championship, But it's definitely something that needs to be looked at. I wouldn't say there's an emergency for it either,
And while I can see the merit with it of rewarding provincial champions more, I think there's other ways of perhaps doing it. I mean, let's say Tyrone win Ulster. I think one thing could be Tyrone have the option of playing the All-Ireland quarter-final in Clones. Bring Kerry, let's say if they come through the back door, bring them up to Clones and see how they like it there.
4 people can come through the qualifiers with equal status of the provincial champions. That is not a fair system. So I think we ought to go with a new way and give the provincial champions a second chance. The 2 who win are in the semi-finals. The 2 who don't then have to meet 2 of the best qualifiers. So it makes the qualifiers a more difficult route to go down, and I think that's fair. And I think it will actually re-establish the value of provincial champions.
I can't see this being brought in at all. I think it hasn't got a hope in hell of surviving, simply because the calendar is clogged up too much as it is. And GAA officials are, to the pin of their collar, trying to make room for extra games. And I can't see any room for this in the calendar. I think this will be wiped out as well.
Well, Damien Lawler, certainly not a fan of it, but Bernard Flynn, there does seem to be something wrong with the situation where if you win the provincial championship, you're now at a bit of a disadvantage potentially.
I think it has a chance. I do. Whether it's this year or next year, it definitely has a chance. I think it will be brought in at some stage. The problem is, you have to tweak it a little bit. Maybe means a 5th round before, the quarterfinals, etc. But in principle, the team, provincial winners do deserve a second chance. There's no question or doubt about that. I firmly believe it'll happen. How you actually try and devise the proper mechanism for them needs a little bit more tweaking. But definitely, I agree with it. It should happen. And I do think, Damien there, it means, as Kevin was saying earlier on, change the calendar a little bit. There is Sundays there. You've made the 9th devoted to a family day and a free day, etc. There is ways around it. Let's get it done.
Having said that, though, Kevin, I mean, if you keep tweaking the championship and adding matches, you may start the championship in January because it'll eventually end up like that.
Yeah, and if you keep tweaking it, the point Conor Coonan made is going to come to. You're going to beat someone in the quarter-final and meet them in the final. I might add, what happens to the two teams that get clean through to the semi-final, never lose the match? Do we give them a second chance when they lose the semi-final? So, you know, I kind of feel the way we have it at the minute, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's as good as we're going to get it. And I personally don't see this one flying. No, I don't.
All right, divided views on that one, there's no doubt about that. OK, time for another commercial break here on Sunday Sport. Now, when we come back, a full roundup of the weekend's results and also more on next weekend's annual Congress. Join us again shortly.
We had a situation this year where Paul Gallivan's sending off went to the hearings committee, and we felt we produced overwhelming evidence to show that the player in question was innocent.
And you're welcome back to part 3 of Sunday Sport. Now, for the moment here on the programme, we're going to return to some of the issues which will be considered at the GAA's annual Congress, which takes place in Newcastle, County Down next weekend. Now, this time it's the issue of reviewing video coverage of matches and perhaps asking referees to reconsider some of their decisions. Now, along with this, there's also a motion calling for a video ref to be available from provincial finals onwards. Here are some of the broad views on this one.
I think the fact that a clip was sent to a referee, I don't think it's any slight on the referee. I think sometimes the media maybe made a little bit much of how the referees felt about it. Overall, referees don't mind. I think there's a lot to be said about, look, if you do the crime, you do the time, and that's it. It doesn't matter how it's caught. If it's not caught on the day, you know, so be it.
It's not fair probably on referees that they should be asked to revisit decisions that they've already made.
In a way, it's re-refereeing the game, and that shouldn't happen. If there's something that doesn't come to the referee's attention, then the CCC or whatever other body is there should adjudicate on it.
They're trying to be as fair as possible, but in their attempt to be fair, they've made the process so unwieldy and so open to, you know, rule interpretation, and you have legal people looking for loopholes. That's not what the GAA is about.
This thing of the CCC or whoever it is sending it back to the referee for clarification is passing the buck a little bit.
There is, rightly or wrongly, you know, a view that maybe some referees wouldn't change their mind because politically they might feel they might damage their chances of getting games further down the line.
I'm sure the referees wouldn't be 100% happy with that, maybe, that they don't get a say in it. But if it's clear-cut video evidence, well then, yeah, why wouldn't it work, you know?
Well, I think the referees don't feel too happy about the fact that they're being asked to rejudge on things that they dealt with in live time, and I can understand it from their perspective. So I think that if that has proven a difficulty for the referees, then it ought not to be applied.
You know, personally speaking, I would prefer to have a referee looking at an incident if I was involved in something, rather than, you know, guys in a committee that know very little about me or probably weren't even at the game, you know what I mean?
Basically, it is dirty work, and let the disciplinary authorities do it themselves, like they do in virtually every other sport on the planet.
Tipperary Chairman Barry O'Brien brought up a motion whereby video refs should be brought in to look at major decisions in controversial circumstances. I suppose it all stems from a Kilkenny player taking a certain amount of steps before he was fouled in the penalty area, and Diarmuid Kerwin gave the penalty, highly controversial at the time. Tipperary got beaten, and they've brought this to the table ever since.
The game is so fast. I don't think it will be add to the spectacle of the game, and I think it will cause a lot of problems and to slow down the game, and maybe it suits other sports, but I don't believe it will suit the GAA.
So I think if there's something that was going to help, we should definitely try it. That would be my own view, and like the video ref seems to work very well again in other games, you know.
Maybe if it was slowing the game down too much, you might have to reconsider it, but there's only one way of finding out, and that's by going and actually experimenting with it.
Having been part of the Sunday game set up for a couple of years, you get a lot of time to have a look at things like that, and it's probably very easy to come up with the correct answers that night when you can definitely say whether a guy was in the square or this, that and the other comes up. But I think hurling is such a quick game, it probably would be a mistake to go into stopping up and going to video refs like we see in the rugby all the time.
I just think it wouldn't sit well with supporters and certainly the players waiting for maybe what could amount to a couple of minutes on a decision in relation to whether the ball had crossed the line, whether the ball had gone over the bar, whether this player was fouled or not fouled. And you know, we have to trust our referees.
If you had a situation where you curtailed it to maybe 2 decisions per side, then that's manageable. But I mean, if you're if you're checking every contentious issue in a game, I think you'll have a long game, you know.
I think sometimes the advocates of this don't understand how limited the role is within rugby, and it tends to be just to do with the scoring of a try.
It'd be very hard to have parameters as well as to what you use it for and what you don't. Do you just use it for scores? Do you use it for incidents within a particular area? You know, I think it'd be very, very difficult to define it.
Let's take a look at the first issue that we discussed there, Kevin McStay, about the referee and sending the report back to the referee for reconsideration. Should we let the referee just make